All right, people, welcome back. I'm Dave, and this is Save America, Vote Tulsi Gabbard. And I am checking out a poll here, which obviously doesn't make me happy. And I know people are going to say, please, Dave, stay positive, don't quit. I'm getting a lot of people that they think I'm just going to quit because I get discouraged. Starting line change research poll. Now, I guess the upside to this is that Bernie Sanders is tied with Joe Biden in this poll, which I think is a counter narrative against the media that Biden is running away with everything. Nationally, he's looking good, supposedly, in their fake. I don't want to say they're fake polls. I don't want to do that. I just can't imagine. Here's the thing that bothers me. Now let me read some of this. Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders are locked in a tie in Iowa atop the large field of Democrats running for the presidential nomination. An Iowa starting line change research poll of 615 likely Democratic caucus goers. It was conducted this past week. May 15th to May 19th, it found Biden and Sanders garnering 24% among Democratic candidates. The poll's margin of error was plus or minus 3.9%. Three contenders trailed. Pete Buttigieg at 14, Elizabeth Warren at 12, Kamala Harris at 10, Beto at 5, Amy Klobuchar and Andrew Yang at 2. Everyone else polled at 1 or less. Okay, so I'm a Tulsi Gabbard supporter. And that last little sentence there, everyone else polled at 1% or less. Okay, so look, folks, Iowa is one of those states where Tulsi should be polling higher than Beto O'Rourke. She should be somewhere between Beto and Harris, the way I look at it. I'm not expecting her to be topping the polls in Iowa, but, and I know, look, we haven't had any debates. It's really early, and to start, what's the word? To start panicking would be a little bit, premature. However, you look at these numbers and you sit here and you try to be positive and say, well, the media is blacking her out. Not necessarily. The media is giving her coverage. It's just they're smearing her almost every time they have an opportunity. In most national polling, Biden was blowing away the rest of the Democratic field. Not beating, but blowing away. So when you write an article within a poll, are you supposed to use terminology like blowing away? A national CNN poll at the end of April had Biden up 24 points over the next closest Democrat. A Fox News national survey put Biden up 18 points last week. But here in Iowa, it's a much closer contest for Biden. Now, we know Iowa as a caucus, and caucuses, by the way, are ridiculous. I would prefer, instead of having these group meetings where people say, hey, come over to our table over here and caucus with us, I'd rather have people have an individual vote and vote the traditional way. I've never liked the Iowa caucuses, however you do it, caucus. Okay, I've never liked it. New Hampshire primary is a much better starting point, but Iowa, too, tends to be usually an outlier. You've had a lot of presidential candidates lose the Iowa caucuses and then go on to win the presidency. Iowa is not a good bellwether for the rest of the country. Anyway, it says in Iowa, it's a much closer contest for Biden. Part of that is due to Sanders' residual strength here from his 2016 run and remaining volunteer network. Well, they're just throwing some positive shade at Sanders. I just misused a term, but I'll say positive shade because they're trying to say that the only reason Sanders is doing well here this time around is because he did okay in 2016, and he's got a bunch of volunteers. And by the way, Sanders has volunteers all over the country. I mean, he's got the most. His network went right to work when the announcement was made. Those 1 million volunteers magically appeared again because they believe in his message. Nobody else has the kind of zeal. Well, let me put it this way. Nobody attracts the kind of zeal like Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard to a lesser extent. You know, Tulsi doesn't have the 1 million people in the network. And she's supposedly polling less than 1%. So, as a Tulsi-crat, as somebody who, you know, I supported Donald Trump because there were policies and positions that I gravitated toward, and I believed some of the things that he was saying. This time around, I want to believe Tulsi Gabbard and Bernie Sanders. And those three candidates, believe it or not, have some things in common. Now, Trump has pretty much given over his presidency to John Bolton and Mike Pompeo. I think both Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard would be commanders-in-chief. They go on in this to talk about South Carolina, where Biden supposedly is crushing everybody. Typically, when you get to South Carolina, it's Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina. When you get to South Carolina, I believe that's a better representation of what the rest of the country might do. I think both Iowa and New Hampshire are a little quirky. I mean, if you can do well in South Carolina, I think you can win everywhere. It tends to be obviously a more red state than blue state, but the blue people in South Carolina unfortunately tend to be representative of what the country is going to do when it comes to voting for the nominee. Biden is up on Sanders by 10 points or so. In some polls, he's up by even more. I don't know. Maybe the Biden thing will start to die out. It seems as though they're running on a platform of Joe is nice, Trump is mean, and you should vote for Joe. I don't know. I think people want ideas and policies. I think we need to try something different, and that's why I'm here. Because we've tried the back and forth, typical blue, typical red, typical blue. We go back and forth. Everybody thought Obama was something special if you were a blue team member. And everybody thinks that Trump is special if you're a red team member. I am no longer playing on a team. I want ideas. I don't want platitudes. So, in any event, this polling is rather discouraging. Here are the actual little bar graphs of everybody. And there's no Tulsi Gabbard on there. There's no Tulsi. And I know people want me to stay optimistic, but you would at least have to start showing up in a poll. And I tell you what, Iowa is a perfect state for Tulsi Gabbard. It's a perfect state. So we shall see if things change after the debates. This channel continues, like I've been saying, this channel will continue until Tulsi Gabbard is the nominee or Tulsi Gabbard is mathematically eliminated from contention. And we'll continue even on after that, but we will have probably a new name, and we'll talk about real issues where people are talking, about healthcare and education and infrastructure and economic populism and what I call third rail ideas which need to be heard. So anyway, they go on and on about these polls, and they break it down, and it's almost splody head time. It's just not what I thought. I thought she would show up, and I thought we'd get a little bounce after all this media attention, but apparently not. So, all right, I'll be back soon. Take care. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, too. We're close to 3,000.